we have Paul continuing to raise his case for prophets, and here's the one that the paragraph that kind of turns in on itself. Tongues, then, are a sign not for believers, but for unbelievers. And I mentioned in my answer to that question that maybe it's ecstasy appeals to the outsider. They all think God shows up where ecstasy is. Um, while prophecy is not for unbelievers, but for believers. That is, I want to be edified by hearing a word of God that makes sense to me. If, therefore, the entire church comes together and all speak in tongues, and outsiders or believers enter, and here's what you would imagine from his first sentence, Paul would say, and they think God must be in this place. Instead, he goes, won't they say that you're all out of your minds? Do you see how he shifts gears? He was set up to have that be a positive thing, and he goes negative. Now, won't they all think that you're ecstatic might be what out of your mind means? But notice where he goes after this. If all prophesy, an unbeliever or outsider who enters is reproved by all, that is, corrected or told the truth, an unbeliever or outsider who enters is reproved by all and called to account by all, if everybody's prophesying. After the secrets of the unbeliever's heart are disclosed, so notice this is part of what prophecy might be. Speaking of the truth about somebody else. Think of Ephesians 4, speaking the truth in love. That person will bow down before God and worship, declaring God is really among you. So, where he started is not where he finishes. But his point again is going to be the purpose of these gifts is to build up both insider and outsider. The sort of John chapter 4 in the Gospels, Jesus shows up at a well in Sychar in Samaria, and there's this woman at the well, and he eventually tells her whole story. You're right, you're not married. You've had 4 husbands, and the guy you're with now isn't your husband, right? Remember that scene? She goes back to her friends and says, I want to introduce you to a man who told me everything about myself, right? That is almost a dictionary entry for what Paul seems to be describing. That the discernment of spirits, that the prophet's sense of what's true apart from all of the posturing seems to have been a part of the prophet's role.